made from the favorable team or the most favored team in Shrine or even in other dungeons. They need to step up. They need to really watch a lot of these early deaths that they've been having, and they need to make sure they're in a position to be able to capitalize on any Deplete from beyond mistakes.
Alright, so we're already in the dungeon here as we've seen both teams do this big snapping pull, as we've seen almost all the teams do so far, where you just gather up a bunch of caster mobs here in this first area. The tank jumps on this lantern and all the mobs snap to them. Red's actually dropping pretty low as he's got a lot of necrotic stacks and no dwarf racial available.
That's right, as they're just grabbing everything together. Deplete from Beyond's already finished his pack. The boys are going a little bit stronger. The boys are doing a little bit different of a pull, excuse me, and they are going to be ignoring that obelisk. So they're just going straight in towards boss, while Deplete from Beyond is dealing with the first of the obelisks. They're dealing with the caster at this point. And the boys, Shadow and Skip, they're already on to Aquasur, as they're just going to start mopping up a lot of the early trash.
Yeah, and the boys actually committed Bloodlust for that very first pull, that snapping pull, while Deplete from Beyond chose to save theirs, I assume, for the boss. And one thing that is also very interesting is that Deplete from Beyond was playing Hunter plus double DK in their time trials, but now they switched out the Hunter for a Demon Hunter, presumably to have more AoE DPS for the unholy DKs because of the magic damage increase they provide. But Hunters also do a lot more consistent damage by themselves, as we see the boys running that Hunter and double DK comp. I wonder why they chose to switch it up.
Part of it might be towards how much they're expecting to buff unholy DK damage, how much more value they'd be able to get out of it. We'd seen, a couple different times where it would be a Hunter versus Demon Hunter, and that would be the primary difference in composition in a lot of these really high trash density dungeons as well. So I guess it's going to be the idea. I guess it's the concept behind it, really. Deplete from Beyond and the boys doing very similar pulls, grabbing everything so they can start blasting Aquasur down as rapidly as they possibly can. The boys just a little bit of a time and trash advantage right at this point.
Yeah, and Deplete from Beyond now also using that Bloodlust on this incredible pull, where there's just so many casters here that need to be careful about. One thing that is good about the casters, though, is that they don't actually apply necrotic to the tank because they don't melee hit. So that's a good thing that the tanks don't have to deal with that. Also, one thing to note, Rentari is playing Iron Dwarf, so he's got the same racial, basically, that also removes the necrotic stacks. It just has a different icon, and you can see the icons, the defensives and the offensive cooldowns underneath the player frames at the top.
That's right. As we're starting to shape up here, Deplete from Beyond getting into that intermission first before the boys. And I'm not really sure what that difference is that we've seen, but it keeps on happening where Deplete from Beyond is just able to neutralize the mobs faster. It seems like their DKs are just pumping more every single time that we start seeing some of these similar pulls. I'm not sure if there's just the burst from the DKs is just delayed on the side of the boys, or pulls are taking too long to really get together. But it's been pretty consistent at this point, as Deplete from Beyond's grabbing a couple of the extra trash mobs here and bringing them back into Aquasur, which is dropping very low right now.
Yeah, we saw Igloo do a pretty nice pull here on the initiates. A small little trick that most teams are doing, this is also something that we've seen on live servers a lot. These initiates, if you go to the left and you just walk slightly closer, like one step at a time, then you can pull the initiates, you can body pull them without actually engaging the mini boss. So this is why those teams are doing that, because you just get a little bit of extra count, and some teams just do not want to deal with Heldis. We've seen some other teams pull Heldis on top of Aquasur, but we've also seen teams wipe because they had that boss there, and just Fortified, so the Heldis does do a lot of AoE damage when she casts her ability, so definitely not an easy pull to do on top of Aquasur.
Love the early cocoon coming in here, dropping it onto Rentari as Deplete from Beyond putting up another extremely large pull here, grabbing everything together and again, just taking control of that rune that gets placed down by Rune Carver Sorn. And that's all you really need at this point, is just to get as much defensive value as you can. Don't leave the rune, as you saw Clicks drop a little bit low the second that he stepped out. And this trash pull is almost done. Sorn is probably going to be the last one that is left alive, but they've done an excellent job here mitigating a lot of the damage, making sure that they had favorable positions just to sit back and avoid a lot of this, as the boys going for something similar right now, but you're just seeing Raz getting absolutely pumped at the moment.
Yeah, it looks like they were actually doing the exact same pull. It looks like they're doing it slightly faster though. The Deplete from Beyond was struggling to finish off that pull because the ward on the floor decreases damage taken not only for players that stand in it, but also for the mobs that stand in it. And it looked like when Tari had a little bit of a problem positioning the mobs at the very end, and they were standing in that ward, getting that damage decrease, and that's why it took them so long to finish off that pull. The boys, on the other hand, pulling even more trash on top just to make use of this ward. They pulled the trash from the outside in, while the Deplete from Beyond finished off their pull inside and then moved out. So both of these teams neck and neck, and once they finish up this pull, they're going to be very equal in trash percentage.
That's right, but Deplete from Beyond's going to be skipping their way past the Guardian Elemental in the center of the bridge as we speak, as Deplete from Beyond is just about to move into the same position. So this is what I was talking about. The boys are a little bit behind from Deplete from Beyond, but they're in a good enough position that they can very easily capitalize off of the first mistake. And when you're in Shrine of the Storm, it's kind of just a game of who is going to make that error first, who is going to be in trouble first, who's going to be having the earliest mistakes. And right now we haven't seen too much of a threat from Necrotic at the moment for many of the reasons of just like grabbing very efficient pulls, like we saw out of Runecarver Sorn, for example, being able to stand in the mitigation field. I know on Brother Ironhall, his field will automatically remove Necrotic. I assume Sorn works the same way, but sometimes there's a lot of inconsistencies with those.
Okay, so this is an incredible pull coming out of Deplete from Beyond as they gathered up this whole room and also engaged the boss at the same time. Rentari had to use his Dwarf Racial almost immediately, but now he's out of the Racial, and look at the amount of stacks he's got already from Necrotic. They need to finish off this trash, and then Rentari somehow needs to drop these Necrotic stacks, else he's not going to be able to finish off this boss. Thankfully, the Initiates run away once they're low HP, so they're not going to apply any Necrotic anymore. And there we go, the ward did spawn, and he did manage to get rid of that Necrotic stack, but that was close. He had so many stacks on him.
Most definitely. And when you're going pull to pull, you're not having any of the racials at your disposal. You're just like, we need to hold on just long enough to be able to survive. And I'm sure they've had a number of times where they, have scuffed any of it in practice, go back, try again, and just absolutely grind it to perfection. Because the slightest mistake, the slightest bit of extra damage is just absolutely debilitating. And Tank's defensive power has grown so much this patch, but if you're just not able to push their health up, it doesn't matter how good your mitigation is.
There we go. The boys now also engaged the boss. It looked like they had reset it earlier. I'm not sure if it was an accident or whichever thing happened, but they now only engage the boss, so definitely quite a bit behind to Deplete from Beyond, as they're already an 18% for both Brother Ironhall and Gale Color Fae. They're evenly cleaving them down, which does decrease the kill time. It makes it more. It makes it riskier to not finish up Gale Color Fae first, just because she's the one who constantly casts that AoE ability. If not interrupted, does AoE damage to everyone and stacks up a debuff, increasing damage from more slicing blasts. But if you evenly cleave them down, as you can see, you just have a faster kill time, and that's what Deplete from Beyond chose to do. Now they're moving on to the obelisk, while the boys still fighting Brother Ironhall and Gale Color Fae.
Right, and significantly faster. I mean, Deplete from Beyond just working to make sure that they can continue extending their lead. And this is also the second obelisk that Deplete from Beyond is going to be dealing with. I don't think we've seen any just yet from the side of the boys. So at this point, we're just going to be looking to see how they're going to deal with some of those last obelisks. And so much of this dungeon just gets put on the end boss, and how well teams can perform there. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, definitely. The difficulty with dealing with the Awaken mobs and also dealing with the boss's mechanics itself is just so incredibly difficult. We've seen so many teams just lose a player here or there, or even have complete team wipes coming in, because any small mistake there can cause either a death or a full team wipe. So definitely want to keep an eye on that last boss once they get there. But Deplete from Beyond is dragging that Awaken mob all the way to the bridge. There actually is a snapping spot where you can snap that Awakened boss on the bridge, but doesn't seem like Deplete from Beyond is using it. They just dragged it along and killed it as they went.
Yep, and the boys still working on Brother Ironhall right now. They didn't opt to cleave anything down, so at that point they just have to take a lot of extra time to be killing it. We are also seeing a Deplete from Beyond running across the bridge. They're going to be ignoring those tentacles, so I guess they're going to be able to avoid some of the extra slam damage. I haven't really tested it to see if they're going to be able to completely avoid the range, I guess, of the tentacle slams, but they are going right into Lord Stormsong's hot tub, actually going near it. But they will be
so they're actually
doing
doing
really quickly.
They're doing a snapping pull, or that's what they did the last time around at least. Let's see if they try. We see their first aid coming out of Rentari, healing himself up a little bit. These are the classic mechanics coming out.
Hey,
but now
there
we
we
see
go.
the snap happening as he jumps into the water, snapping all of this bridge trash on top. This is a very dangerous pull, and we've seen them struggle the last time and actually have a wipe come in here. But this time around, let's hope they can pull it off. They don't have Bloodlust available yet, and of course want to save it for the last boss anyway. But keep an eye on Necrotic, on Rentari on the tank, because he's got no Dwarf Rage anymore. He's already used it. But all the trash is dead. Well, look at that. Look at that DK damage. Deleted the mobs.
Huge. And every time, I mean, that's what it's all about, is making sure that last dungeon, you kill the mobs before the raging overwhelms you. This dungeon, you know, do it before the Necrotic does. And Deplete from Beyond has done such a great job of having the burst when they really need it as well. Misty also ended up getting the debuff there. Really like seeing that transcend, so whenever he had to go down into Stormsong's hot tub to DPS himself, basically, he set up the transcend so that he wouldn't have to worry about swimming out at the proper time. And that's always a little bit of great utility to see. I love when Mistweavers get to use their transcendence more frequently.
Yeah, most definitely. We see the boys now manage to pull their Awaken up all the way up to the bridge as well. They're gonna release now. They need a little bit less trash at this point, as Deplete from Beyond needed when they were here. So they don't need to do this whole bridge pack anymore, as we see Deplete from Beyond snapping onto the boss. They should be fine with only the Dwellers, and then the last few percentage they can get in the last boss area, plus the Awaken mobs. Deplete from Beyond, though, they did this pull a lot better than we've seen them doing last time around. They still have some trash alive, though, and Chaya going down, unfortunately, for the boys' side.
Yeah, Rad's about to go down, as well as Bob is just going to be sitting back to get the res on most of the party at that point. Very disappointing to see, as this is just what's going to be causing them to lag even further behind, as the last bits of RP are done for Lord Stormsong, so they're going to look to engage the boss quickly, but they're just taking considerably more time, and it's just adding up every single moment, right? Deplete from Beyond's at 84% trash. They're moving on into the last boss room. No deaths on the board, and looking smooth.
Yeah, so now we'll see how Deplete from Beyond handles this last boss area. Correct me if I'm wrong, we haven't seen Deplete from Beyond deal with many Awaken mobs. We've only saw them deal with one so far.
Two. They
did the Void Weaver. Okay. So the boys was the one that did not do the Void Weaver, correct?
That's right. So the boys are just now working on. Well, I guess the boys also used it to cross the bridge, so they took care of the tank busters. So they should have two. Deplete from Beyond should have two as well. They just ended up taking care of different ones.
True, exactly. So Deplete from Beyond, they are swimming very low here. Looks like Rentari is grabbing one of some of these eel packs. We've seen most tanks pick up a bunch of eel packs before they engage the boss, just to amplify the DK damage onto the boss. Now, these eel packs can cause a lot of problems, especially with Necrotic, because the eel packs themselves, they leave a stacking bleed debuff behind, and on top of also applying Necrotic to the tank, they can be very dangerous, and this is why we see them using the Ring of Peace and using the AoE stuns and whatever else they have to not get the Necrotic on the tank, and they want to nuke them down as fast as they possibly can.
Yep, and I really like that pull out of Rentari. He made sure that he grabbed all of the mobs together, and part of the pathing is because of the uneven terrain and this last boss's room. They did an excellent job of making sure that everything was corralled together and everything slowly followed Rentari out of the water to avoid any sort of resets and then move into the boss. So it's that little bit of extra patience to make sure that you're able to outplay some of the possible issues that can happen with pathing. Very well played there by Rentari as he's kiting out that Blood of the Corruptor. Missy is there to support him as well. And overall, last boss dropped down to 66% in the very first phase. So Deplete from Beyond is looking extremely strong throughout their Shrine of the Storm run.
Man, and that looks scary. I mean, engaging this trash pack before they go into the other realm just to like use his charge. risky, because if any sort of casts, of course, go through from these denizens, then the healer will just immediately go down. But he knows, of course, that the cast was already started by the boss, and therefore the cast from denizens is not going to finish, because both or the whole team actually is going to get into another realm, and therefore the trash pack is just resetting. So well done to abuse that mechanic here by Rentari, as the blood seems to be going down now. So the most dangerous part of the boss is over now, with the Awaken mobs going down. You still have to deal with this middle pack with the 2 denizens and the tank one as well, which we've seen some teams struggle with, just because the tank one does do a lot of damage to the tank, on top of also having Necrotic. And of course, if you mismanage your interrupts, you can also just have some problems with your healers going down.
Yep. Speaking of, Bob dropping really low. Raz feeling the brunt of the Necrotic as he got 17 stacks and goes down. The rest of the team is soon to follow, and the boys are just falling apart here on Shrine of the Storm. Deplete from Beyond got out of their first intermission phase. They're taking their time, corralling all of the little eels together. Extremely well played by these guys. You're seeing, you know, a little bit of the stutter stepping from the eels as they try to navigate here, but they are well poised and primed to be taking this game as they grab the middle pack, all of the eels, every single trash pack in together. Let's see if they're able to burn this boss for the last 60% of his HP, because it's just falling apart right now.
And all the DKs are alive, so sometimes we see these kind of pulls with the Bloodlust and the Eels, and the DKs just go down immediately because they either draw aggro or they get hit by a tentacle, but not for Deplete from Beyond, as they have 0 deaths. What a clean run by them so far, as Volcanic is going to go down, so they're able to one-phase this. They still need 2% trash, so there's probably an Eel pack
it's the
that they still
denizen.
have to do.
Yeah, if you see the denizen in the back, he's lumbering along there.
Yeah,
he's taking
I
his
can
time.
see it now, the tank one, yeah. So
Yep,
you just
but
need to
one
finish off the
phase is
denizen, and there we go. What a clean run by Deplete from Beyond. And yeah, they're winning against the boys 2-0.
That's right, they're 2 seconds slower than their time trial best.
Wow.
Absolutely wild. Deplete from Beyond has stepped up to such a ridiculous level in this week compared to their first performance. They're moving on and throughout the lower bracket.
Absolutely a clean run.